Microsoft Azure is a rapidly growing and improving cloud services platform that enables businesses to efficiently address their business issues. The extensive collection of cognitive APIs available allows you to integrate human-like intelligence into your applications, computer vision, custom vision, face recognition, form recognizer, ink recognizer, and whatnot. This is why Azure is one of the most important skill sets for all the data engineers. Welcome to another session by K21Academy. This session is especially for those who are preparing for Azure data engineer interviews, as well as for those looking out for questions that could be expected from an interview point of view. Let's get started with the session. The first and very basic question that could be asked is, what is Microsoft Azure? Azure is Microsoft's cloud computing platform, and cloud computing is an online computing service which may include both hardware and software, where the service provider creates a managed service to enable users to access these services on demand. Moving on to our second question, that is, what are the different types of storages in Azure? There are 5 types of storages in Azure. It includes the following storages. First is Azure Blobs. Blobs stand for a binary large object. This storage solution supports all kinds of files, including text files, videos, images, documents, and binary data. Next is Azure Files. Azure Files is an organized way of storing data on the cloud. The main advantage of using Azure Files over Azure Blobs is that Azure Files allows for organizing the data in folder structure. Also, Azure Files is SMB compliant, that is, it can be used as a file share. Next is Azure Queues. Azure Queues is a cloud-based messaging store for establishing and brokering communication between various applications and components. Next, we have Azure Tables. It is a NoSQL storage solution for storing structured data which does not meet the standard relational database schema. Next, we have Azure Disks. This is used as a storage solution for Azure virtual machines. Moving to our next question, that is, what is data redundancy in Azure? Azure constantly retains several copies of data to provide high levels of data availability. There are some data redundancy solutions accessible to clients in Azure depending on the criticality and duration necessary to provide access to these replica. We have locally redundant storage, that is LRS. Data is replicated across different racks in the same data center. This option ensures that there are at least 3 copies of the data. It is the cheapest redundancy option. Next, we have Zone Redundant Storage, that is ZRS. Choosing this option ensures that the data is replicated across 3 zones within the primary region. Next, we have Geo Redundant Storage, that is GRS. As the name suggests, data is replicated across 2 regions. This option ensures that data can be recovered if an entire region goes down. Next is Read Access Geo Redundant Storage, that is RAGRS. This is the same as GRS but with added option of read access to the data in the secondary region in case of a failure in the primary region. Moving on to our next question, that is, what are multi-model databases? Cosmos Databases, formerly known as Document DB, is a Microsoft's premier NoSQL service offering on Azure. It is the first globally distributed multi-model database offered on the cloud by any vendor. It can be used to store data in various data storage models such as key-value pairs, document-based, graph-based, column family-based, etc. No matter what data model the customer chooses, consistency, low latency, global distribution, and automatic indexing features are the same. This will be discussed in details in the next questions. Now, the next question is, what are some ways to ingest data from on-premise storage to Azure? One of the initial challenges customers come across after purchasing Azure storage is moving on-premises data to Azure storage account. Microsoft provides data transfer solutions for various scenarios. In today's answer, we are going to have a look at these solutions. The main factors to consider while choosing the data transfer solution are data size, data transfer frequency, or it could be one-time or periodic, network bandwidth, and depending upon the above factors, data movement solutions can be either offline or online or through a network. Let's have a look. Now let's talk about the online transfer. This method is used for one-time bulk data transfer. Now next we have network transfer. In this, data transfer over a network connection can be performed in the following ways. First is graphical interface, programmatic transfer, on-premises devices, and managed data factory pipeline. Moving to our next question, that is, what is the best way to migrate data from an on-premise data to Azure? Azure provides the following options to move data from existing on-premises SQL Server to Azure SQL Database. SQL Server Stretch Database. This option moves some of the data from SQL Server in 2016 or above to the Azure. It identifies the code rows which are accessed infrequently by the users and move them to the cloud. We have Azure SQL Database. This option is suitable for organizations that want to go ahead with a cloud-only strategy. We have SQL Server Managed Instances. This is one of the configurations supported in Azure Database as a Service, that is DBaaS. Microsoft provides this option where the database maintenance is taken care by Microsoft and the database is almost 100% compatible with on-premises SQL Server. Next, we have SQL Server on virtual machine. If a customer wants to have a complete control over the database management and maintenance, then this is a suitable option. Moving to our next question, that is, what is the difference between ADLS and Azure Synapse Analytics? Talking about ADLS Generation 2, it is optimized for storing and processing structured and non-structured data, whereas the Azure Synapse Analytics is optimized for processing structured data in well-defined schema. ADLS is built on work with Hadoop, whereas Azure Synapse Analytics is built on SQL Server. In ADLS, there is no regulatory compliance, whereas in Azure Synapse Analytics, it is compliant with regulatory standards such as HIPAA. Moving next to our question, that is, what are the various consistency models available in Cosmos database? Consistency models, also known as consistency levels, provide a way for developers to choose between high availability and better performance. Usually, the choice is between two extremes, but Cosmos DB provides granular scale of consistency levels that can be configured to suit specific business requirements. Let's have a look at each of the consistency models available in Cosmos DB. First is strong. This consistency model guarantees that every time a read operation occurs, it fetches the most recent version of the data. Next, we have bounded staleness. In this consistency model, there is an option to set a time lag between write and the read operation. Next, we have session. This is the default and the most popular consistency level in Cosmos DB. We have consistence prefix. This consistency level guarantees that users do not see out of the order writes, but there is no time-bound replication of the data across regions. Next, we have eventual. As the name suggests, this consistency level does not guarantee any time-bound or version required replication. This means if there is no new data written, then eventually all replicas will be synced and have the latest data. Now, the next question in our list is, what is Azure Cosmos DB synthetic partition key? It is especially important to select a good partition key that distributes the data evenly across multiple partitions. However, if there is no suitable column with properly distributed values, we can create a synthetic partition key. There are three ways to create a synthetic partition key. First is concatenate the properties. We can combine multiple property values to form a synthetic partition key. For example, suppose we have the following document. In this, we have random suffix, pre-calculated suffix. Moving to our next question, that is, how do you capture streaming data in Azure? As connected devices become more commonplace, we are moving towards the true IoT world, where every device will be connected to internet and be able to generate a continuous stream of data. This calls for a new requirement of collecting, storing, and analyzing the constants of stream. To address this need, Azure provides a dedicated analytics service, aptly named Azure Stream Analytics. Azure Stream Analytics provides a simple SQL-based language called Stream Analytics Query Language. Azure Stream Analytics provides developers the ability to extend the query language by defining additional machine learning functions. Azure Stream Analytics can process massive amounts of data on the scale over 1 million events per second and deliver the results with ultra-low latency. Moving to our next question, that is, how do we explore the Azure Storage Explorer and its uses? Azure Storage Explorer is a versatile standalone application for managing Azure storage from any platform. Azure Storage Explorer is available for Windows, Mac OS, and Linux. It can be downloaded from Microsoft. Also, Azure Storage Explorer provides access to multiple Azure data stores such as Cosmos DB, ADLS Generation 2, queues, tables, blobs, etc. It provides an easy-to-navigate, rich GUI. After downloading, the next step is to link the Azure storage account. This will enable the users to connect to storage resources already available in the Azure or create and manage new data stores. One of the key features of Azure Storage Explorer is that it allows users to work even when they are disconnected from the Azure cloud services. This is achieved by attaching local emulators. Users have the option to use Azure Storage Emulator on Windows or Azurite, which supports Mac OS and Linux. Users can benefit from cost savings and increased productivity. Moving to our next question that is in the list, what is Azure Databricks and how it is different from normal Databricks? Azure Databricks is Azure implementation of Apache Spark. Apache Spark is an open source big data processing platform. Databricks sits in the data preparation or processing stage in the data lifecycle. This starts with the data being ingested in Azure using Data Factory and stored in permanent storage such as ADLS Generation 2 or blob storage. Alternatively, data could be streamed using Kafka, Event Hub, or IoT Hub. In the next stage, data is processed using machine learning in Databricks, which uses Apache Spark under the hood, and the extracted insights are then loaded into one of the analytics services in the Azure. These insights are now ready to be visualized and represented to the end users with the help of analytical reporting tools such as Power BI. Moving to our next question that says, what is primary ETL service in Azure? Well, ETL stands for extract, transform, and load. It is a data pipeline used to collect data from various sources, transform the data according to the business rules, and load it into destination place. The transformation work in ETL takes place in specialized engine and involves using staging labels to temporarily hold data as it is being transformed and ultimately loaded to its destination. The data transformation that takes place usually involves various operations such as filtering, sorting, aggregating, joining data, cleaning data, deduplicating, and validating the data. Often, the three ETL phases are run in parallel to save time. Moving to our next question, that is, what is serverless database computing in Azure? Serverless computing is a relatively new development in the cloud computing space. In the normal computing scenario, program code resides either on the server or on the client side. Serverless computing changes this paradigm with stateless code, that is, code that does not require any infrastructure. Customers only have to pay for the compute resources used by the code during the short time that it takes for executing the code. These code snippets that perform the specific tasks are called functions. There are some of the tough questions which we require for a good understanding of Azure concepts. The first question that is in the tough list is, how is data security implemented in ADLS Generation 2? Data security and privacy are very important and in some parts of the world also mandated by law. Data security is also one of the primary concerns that discourage organizations from moving data to the cloud. ADLS Generation 2 has a robust, multi-layered security model. Let's have a look at the 6 data security layers of ADLS Generation 2. First layer is authentication. Second is access control. We have network isolation, data protection, advanced threat protection, and auditing. Auditing is the 6th layer and the final layer of the security. Moving to our next question, that is, what are the various windowing functions in Azure Stream Analytics? A window in Azure Stream Analytics context means that a block of time-stamped event, that is, example, it could be with IoT or web click stream, that enables users to perform various statistical operations on the event data. To partition and analyze a window in Azure Stream Analytics, 4 types of windowing functions are available. First is tumbling window. This is the easiest to understand of all Azure Stream Analytics window functions. It is the tumbling window function. The data stream is segmented into distinct fixed length time segments. Hopping window. Hopping windows are like tumbling windows, but both have fixed duration segments, but in hopping windows, the data segments can overlap. Another one is sliding window. The windowing function does not necessarily produce aggregation after a fixed time interval. And the last we have is session window. This function groups events based on the time of arrival. So there is no fixed window size. Instead, there are 3 parameters. First is timeout, maximum duration, and the partitioning key. The next question in our tough list is, what data security options are available in Azure SQL database? We have Azure SQL firewall rules. When it comes to firewall rules, Azure provides 2 levels of security. There are several level firewalls rules which are stored in the SQL master database. Next, we have Azure SQL Always Encrypted. Always Encrypted feature is designed to protect sensitive data such as credit card numbers or passwords or anything that has encryptions. Next, we have Azure SQL Transparent Data Encryption, and the last one is Azure SQL Database Auditing. Next question in our list is, which service would you use to create data warehouse in Azure? We have multiple services: Azure Data Share, Ecosystem, Azure Machine Learning, Azure Synapse Analytics, and Power BI. Moving to our next question, that is, explain the architecture of Azure Synapse Analytics. Azure Synapse Analytics is designed to process huge amounts of data. Sometimes tables in the Synapse Analytics can have hundreds of millions of rows. Even with these huge amounts of data loads, Synapse Analytics is processed complex queries and returns the query results within seconds. This is possible because of Synapse SQL runs on a massively parallel processing architecture where the processing of data is distributed across multiple nodes. Applications connect to controller node. As the name suggests, a control node acts as the point of entry to the Synapse Analytics MPP engine. To implement parallel processing of Synapse SQL, Data Movement Services, that is DMS, and internal service manages the data movement across multiple nodes and as and when required. The next question in our list is, what are data masking features available in Azure? Dynamic data masking plays a significant role in data security in the context of Azure SQL database. It is a way of restricting access to sensitive information to a specific set of users. Dynamic data masking is available for Azure SQL databases, Azure SQL Managed Instances, and Azure Synapse Analytics. Dynamic data masking can be implemented as a security policy that can be implemented on all SQL databases across Azure subscription. Customers can control the level of masking as per the requirements. Dynamic data masking only masks the query results for specific column values on which the data masking has been applied, and it does not affect the actual store of the data in the database. Moving to our next question, that is, what is a polybase? Polybase uses an HDFS bridge to connect external data sources, example Azure Blob Storage. The connection is bidirectional and can be used to transfer data between Azure Synapse Analytics, and the external source is extremely fast. Polybase comes with very handy when joining the data stored in the SQL Server data warehouse. This eliminates the need to retrieve the external data separately and loading it into the SQL data warehouse for the further analysis. Let's have a look at the use cases of polybase. We have query data, import data, and export data. In export data to Hadoop, Azure Blob Storage, Azure Data Lake stores, it supports and exports archiving of data to external data source as well. Moving to our next question, that is, what is reserved capacity in Azure? Well, reserved capacity is priced at a discount compared to normal capacity on Azure storage. To optimize Azure storage crisis cost, Microsoft provides an option of reserved capacity on Azure storage. Reserved storage provides a fixed amount of capacity to customers on the Azure cloud for the period of reservation. The cost savings depends upon the following factors, that is, duration of the storage capacity reserved, access tiers, types of redundancy chosen. Moving to our next question, that is, what are pipelines and activities in Azure? A pipeline is a grouping of activities that are arranged to accomplish a task together. Pipelines helps users to manage individual activities as a group and provides a quick and easy overview of the activities involved in a complex task with multiple steps. There are a lot of different activities available in Azure Data Factory. Some of the most widely used ones are the copy activity, the data flow activity, and the data flow activity is used to process and transform data using Azure services such as Synapse Analytics. Moving on to the next question, that is, how do you manually execute data factory pipelines? After creating the pipeline, we need to execute or run pipeline to begin the task that a pipeline is designed to perform. A pipeline is run in an instance of the pipeline execution. The simplest way to run a pipeline is a manual or on-demand execution. There are various ways to do this. We will look at the PowerShell command to execute an Azure Data Factory pipeline programmatically using the new AZ PowerShell module, where ASDF pipeline is the name of the pipeline that is being run, and the parameter file parameter specifies the path of a JSON file with the source and the sync path. The format of the JSON file is to be passed as a parameter to the above PowerShell command. One of the questions which are of high probability in an interview question. Moving to our next question, that is, Azure Data Factory control versus data flow. If you're familiar with Cloud SQL Services Integration, that is SSIS, then you must understand the difference between control flow and data flow. The concepts apply to Azure Data Factory as well. Control flow activity is an activity that affects the path of execution of the data factory pipeline. Example, for each activity which creates a loop is if the conditions are met. Data flow transformations are used where we need to transform the input data, example join or conditional split. Let us look at some of the differences between the two. Talking about control flow activity, it affects the execution sequence or the path of the pipeline. It can be recursive, there is no resource or sink, and it can be implemented at the pipeline level. Whereas if I talk about data flow pipelines, then it is non-recursive in nature, the source and sinks are required, and it is implemented at the activity level. Another probable question that could be asked in your interview is Name the data flow partitioning schemes in Azure. Partitioning schemes are a way to optimize performance of the data flow. This setting can be accessed on the Optimize tab in the configuration panel for the data flow activity. Microsoft recommends leaving the setting to default use current partitioning in most cases. This sends an instruction to the data factory to use native partitioning schemes. The single partitioning option is used when the users want to output to a single destination, that is, a single file in ADLS Generation 2. Moving to our next question, that is, what is Azure Table Storage? Azure Table Storage is a storage service optimized for storing structured data. Table entities are basic units of the data that can be stored in Azure Table Storage. Table entities are equivalent to rows in relational databases. In other words, entities are collections of properties and each property is represented as a key value pair. The three main system properties of table entities are the following. First is partition key, second is row key, and third is the timestamp. The partition key and the row key together uniquely identify the table entity across the Azure Table Storage. In other words, partition key and the row key form the composite primary key for table entity. Moving to our next question, that is, what is the trigger execution in Azure Data Factory? The real benefit of Azure Data Factory is that pipelines can be automated. There are various ways to automate or trigger the execution of Azure Data Factory pipelines. First is schedule trigger. This trigger invokes a pipeline execution at a fixed time. Moving to tumbling window trigger. In tumbling window trigger, it executes the ADF pipeline at periodic time intervals. Next, we have event-based triggers. These triggers execute the ADF pipeline based on the occurrence of some event. And it may be noted that both schedule trigger and the tumbling window trigger can be used to create recurring pipeline executions. The second last question in our list is, what are mapping data flows? Azure Data Factory has comprehensive data transformation and integration capabilities. For those looking for a simpler data integration experience compared to the Data Factory pipelines, Microsoft provides mapping data flows which do not require writing any code. Mapping data flows in Azure Data Factory are a visual way to design transformation flows. The data flow created using mapping data flow internally become Azure Data Factory activities and get executed as a part of the Azure Data Factory pipelines. The data flows are compatible with Azure Data Factory's scheduling, control, flow, and monitoring features. The last question in our list is, what are dedicated SQL pools? Dedicated SQL pool is a collection of features that enable the implementation of the more traditional enterprise data warehousing platform using Azure Synapse Analytics. As the name suggests, a dedicated SQL pool is a collection of resources measured in the data warehousing units. It is provisioned using Synapse SQL. This pool uses columnar storages and relational databases to store data, which enables it to store and analyze massive amounts of data. The benefits of using columnar storage is that it reduces the amount of storage required, thereby reducing overall storage costs. Like always, we have something really special for you. If you want to learn about Azure Data Engineer in depth, and if you want to get through with all such amazing questions, then we have something for you. You can log on to our free class and book your free seat right now. All you have to do is log on to K21Academy.com/DP20302. Let me show you a demo for the same. Alright everyone, so I'll just quickly show you how you can do that. So just click on your browser and type K21Academy.com/DP20302 and then you'll be seeing this page. Just click on register now. So just let me select Thursday and I'll add my name. You can add your email and then add your phone number and click on yes, save my seat. After that, I'll be seeing this page. On the right hand side, you'll be seeing a URL, so you can save that URL in your calendars or with you. Keep it in your notes. And on the left hand side, we'll be giving you, if you attend our free class till the end, then you'll be having this bonus. So till then, I'll see you in the class. Keep hustling and take care.